Welcome, everyone. My name is Ben Himmelfarb. I'm the Library and Community Services Manager at the main library for Richmond Public Library. And tonight we are joined by the authors and subjects of Portrait of Immigrant Voices. Author Joe Kutchera and Richmond-based Colombian artist, teacher, and muralist Alfonso Pérez Acosta came together and collaborated on Portraits of Immigrant Voices. We're also going to be joined by Abdul Jabouli of Syria, whose story and portrait are featured in the book. Portrait of Immigrant Voices features the stories of 22 immigrants who have come to Richmond, Virginia from around the world to become our neighbors. Their stories are the stories of our city. The proceeds from the book benefit Afghan and Asian refugees who have settled in Virginia, and that fund is set up and managed by the Asian American Society of Central Virginia, and that organization also helped facilitate the publication of the book. Support for the publication of the book and connection with some of the subjects of the book also came from the city's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Engagement. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, Alfonso, and Abdul. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having us, and happy 100th anniversary to Richmond Public Library. Oh, here is someone's joining us. As Ben mentioned, I'm Joe Kutchera. I'm the author of the book, and I collaborated with artist Alfonso Pérez Acosta on creating the portraits and the personal stories. You can find Alfonso on Instagram at A Drawing Table, and this is going to be a conversational / interview kind of book chat. And so when I'll share a bit about the project, then Alfonso, and then we'll be talking with Abdul about his story and featured in the book. Our project began in 2020 during the pandemic, when Alfonso pitched the idea to the City of Richmond's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Engagement. And the idea was to create a digital art exhibition featuring, Alfonso's portraits. And then when he pitched it to Carla, who's at the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Engagement at the City of Richmond, she loved the idea and then connected us with the other sponsors, Virginia Humanities, and then we connected with Studio 23, where Alfonso was doing his a residency. And the idea behind the project was really to explore the diversity of immigrant experiences as well as language diversity, and to highlight the diversity of Richmond and how people from all across the world have come to call Richmond, Virginia home. Before I move on, let me just say we worked on the project that summer in 2020, and then we launched it in this series on October 28th, which is National Immigrants Day. So that's a holiday that's typically celebrated in like much larger cities like New York City. And we published new stories and portraits running through International Migrants Day, which is an international day, typically honored by organizations like the United Nations. And we published the portraits and stories on the City of Richmond website, rvastrong.org, and then launched it on social media and ran it through December 18th, International Migrants Day. I put the URL at the top where you can actually read the kind of the original stories. And what really made this so rewarding is just hearing about people's stories and their journeys of coming to Richmond. I just highlighted a few of them here. Marge Mota is on the upper left. She came from the Philippines. She was recruited to work at a hospital when many American hospitals were recruiting nurses in Asia, when there was a shortage of nurses in the US, and documented, we shared her story of coming to the US and settling down in Richmond, Virginia. Malik Khan is on the lower left. He came for school and met his wife, and and then stayed for work and settled down. And since 9/11, he had around the time of 9/11, he retired. And then after 9/11, he and his wife, who had converted to becoming Muslim, actually spent a lot of time educating the public about the Muslim religion, and has dedicated a lot of their time teaching classes and seminars. Pim Butt escaped the civil war in Cambodia, and she spent some time in a refugee camp with her husband, and came to Richmond, Virginia, with the help of a refugee agency, and settled down and had 2 children. And we were thrilled that her daughter, who's a very experienced graphic designer, joined us in designing the book. And then on the upper right, probably one of our biggest advocates of the book is Franco Laghi, who's from Italy. There you can see him, making kind of the Italian gesture. He came for professional reasons. His wife is and then they stayed and retired. And his wife is Julie Laghi, who's the president of the Asian American Society of Central Virginia, who's from Singapore originally. So what made this so rewarding was the people. Here are Alfonso and I at the launch of the book, which we launched the book about a year or year and a half after the original series. And here we are with Pim Butt from Cambodia, and then her daughter Tita Tep, who was the designer on the book, and we were thrilled to work with her. And by the way, some of the things that made we updated a lot of the stories. In fact, when doing the interviews, it was very interesting and kind of funny, because I started to discover that a lot of people's names actually meant something in their original language. So then I had to go back and interview the people who I did at the beginning of the series, and to make it, and also added some things to their stories, but especially highlighting what their name means in their native language. Let's see. Tita also shared her story of how her memories of being a little child and being her family was sponsored by actually a very prominent attorney, and helped them, and she shared her memories of her experiences and kind of how that shaped her view of the project, and what made her excited to participate. And here we are with Julie Laghi, wife of Franco Laghi, who's in the book. And as I mentioned, Julie is the president of the Asian American Society of Central Virginia, who sponsored the project and helped us take their project to make it into a book and to bring it to the next level. So with that, actually, Alfonso, let me pass it over to you and tell us about the portraits and color scheme and so on.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that, 2020 was the year where the pandemic hit, and then reality just shifted into something that nobody knew what to do with that. And in the middle of that, the idea of doing something with this project kind of like came together just because we collaborated between each other and try to make it work with phone calls and Google Meets and that new reality of just like being human in a distance, like being distant. And so somehow the nature of these portraits was digital at the beginning, also trying to play with that, also trying to adjust to the situation or the condition of we're not going to do anything in person for a while. How can we get some stories out there, and how can we celebrate immigration this year with those restrictions, right? So 2020. A little bit of a I guess background for this project could be about like me starting to do something back in 2019 with like a first celebration of immigrant heritage, National Immigrants Day in 2019. And after that, and they were portraits as well. But in 2020, the idea was to celebrate that day with some type of like main interest in language diversity. So language diversity was the first idea that I was trying to share with people from the Office of Multicultural Affairs. It was the idea that we talked about with Joe, and it was the idea that we were communicating with people who wanted to participate from the beginning, just in order to like share about their immigrant experience, but at the same time, their experience with language, learning English and bringing their own language into a new country, and like the difficult and funny things that would bring, actually made like the interview and actually made the portraits had like a particular energy. So yeah, so these portraits basically are digital portraits that I started like organizing or creating in the middle of the pandemic, but really thinking about how can I just show the presence of this person with the details in their face, and just focusing a little bit on their gesture, but at the same time giving enough space and giving enough importance to their name, to their country of origin, and to their language, to their first language. So everything in the portraits is trying to move like around those elements. The main element in the middle is always going to be that kind of like scribblish drawing in black ink with the face of the person. And then I would do the silhouette with the colors of the flag of their country of origin, and the background is also part of those colors. So for example, here with Malik, he only had 2 colors in his flag. And so for me, it was like, okay, I have white already in the language and in his name, but I need to just play with 2 or 3 different tones of green in order to make, you know, the portrait make sense. So it was kind of easy, but at the same time, it was just difficult in order to play with that simplicity and make it happen. And so those are the colors. Every portrait has the same logic to it. You know, I would focus on the face in black, and then play with the colors of each flag. Sometimes just keeping the original colors from the flag, and sometimes finding some variations of those colors, just to have like a better shaped or like a better presented image at the end. And I also remember that at some point when I started with the portraits, they were a little bit more towards the middle of the space of the paper, let's say, but I felt that it was too distant, and I wanted to feel the people a little bit closer. So I just started zooming in, and at the end, what I ended up doing was that every portrait has a little bit of their head cut at the top, just to give you that feeling of them coming out of the frame. There's something that's happening in the frame, but there's also something going beyond the frame, which gives you the sense of closeness too. And so the initial version of the project was the digital version, and almost everything came together in terms of composition, in terms of color, in terms of giving like a focus to the project with these initial portraits.
Hold on. Do you want to tell us then about what you did at Studio 2-3?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, so when I think right at the same time that we were preparing to start posting the portraits digitally, maybe a month or 2 months before that, again, that 2020, I ended up partnering with Studio 23, which is a printing studio here in Richmond. And they offered me an art residency to develop some type of version or some type of project with the Portraits of Immigrant Voices. So the idea there, the intention there was to find a way of translating the digital versions into printed versions, into screen printed versions, which, I don't know, seemed like simple, but it ended up being a little bit more complicated, because at the same time, I wanted to be respectful with the original version, the digital version, that the participants had like seen, or they knew that was the image that was coming. But also I wanted to play around with the elements of screen printing and find a way of having an image or an art piece that was something in itself on paper. So this image is from, let's say, the first layer of each portrait. And for Malik, this is Malik's portrait. So each portrait has this image that ends up being printed in black ink on a piece of paper. But then before that, we selected a paper, white paper, size of paper that we wanted to do, and we had to find a color that was similar to the background color from each portrait, right? So you just find that color, something that is a little bit similar to that, or that helps you like highlight all the rest of the elements. And so you add that color to the paper first, then comes this layer with the details in black. And then I would start playing with little prints and little like ways of printing with the name and with the country and with the language, to add like a different color and a different texture, because the idea was to highlight all of those three elements at the end with white ink. So it was a matter of playing with that in a different moment, like in a different order. Mm-hmm. But also thinking, how can I keep the same thing and highlight some of the other stuff? So this was, I think this was in the middle of that, when we already knew that was the order, that was the process. Yay! And so here is here's the half of the exhibition that we did with the portraits already printed. And again, this is in the middle of the pandemic. No one was doing anything indoors. There were no exhibitions indoors, no museums, galleries, nothing was opening to have people attend. And so the alternative, for the suggestion from Studio 23 was to do the exhibition in their windows, on their windows. And we loved it, because it was about displaying the work all the time for anybody who would just pass by, and they could see the series of portraits there. So we had half of the portraits here and the other half in the other set of windows on the left.
At Studio 23.
Yeah.
And then tell us your impressions of when we hosted the opening. Again, it was all outside, but the people featured came and
right. So I think in my mind, and maybe in Joe's too, but in my mind, all of this makes sense, because we're trying to celebrate immigration at least one day, where we get together and we're happy with it, and we celebrate it with music and food and just people around, and share the different accents and just have fun with that. So with the challenges of that year, we managed to organize a gathering, right? A community gathering, to kick off the exhibition at the parking space beside Studio 23. And the reason why we picked the parking space was that the parking space had a huge wall where we could project the portraits digitally there and just kind of like celebrate each participant at a time. And at the same time, you know, that day, almost everybody that was part of the project in one way or another, especially the participants, especially the people who has their portraits there, came together. And for Joe and I, we were able to meet you guys in person and talk to you. It was, I remember having such a strange feeling because I felt that I knew everybody already, just because I, you know, did the portrait in a very detailed way. I felt that I had a strong connection with everyone. So when I met you guys and when I saw you, it felt way more familiar than just meeting someone for the first time.
Yeah. So even though we had worked digitally together on Zoom and exchanging emails and photos of all the subjects, we finally got to connect in person at that opening at Studio 23. Yeah, that was. Hey, let's transition to talking with Abdul here, but before, let's just Alfonso, just tell us a little bit about the color and then working with the colors from the flags.
Yeah. So Abdul, I think Abdul's portrait was the first one that I started doing on paper, that I started like translating on paper, and it was also one of the first ones that I did digitally. So I also remember that it was one of those portraits that comes out very quickly because somehow the elements are just like in the air. So thank you, Abdul, for your great photo, for your great presence, and it just made it possible. And for me, I mean, the flag, I had the flag from Syria, and so I had red, green, white, and black, right? So black, I knew I already had it in the face, in the main features of the face. I knew I had white in the letters for the language and for your name. And then I had to play a little bit with green and red. And I was looking for, because I didn't want it to keep the same green and red that you have in the original flag, because it felt very Christmassy, like a Christmas card. And I didn't want to have that feeling. So I started playing with the background first and just going into a lighter tone of red. And in the middle of that, just trying out different tones of green. And this fluorescent green was one of my first options. I think as a mistake, probably. And I loved it. I was like,
it came out good. It came out nice.
This is it. And it was funny because without knowing you, I felt that this was your energy. This was this really represented you. So that ended up being the color of your portrait.
Very cool. Well, Abdul, just to start, I have your book right here, and you know, as we talked about, one of the themes of the book is language diversity in Richmond. Tell us a little bit about the title of your stories. Peace be upon you. Tell us about what does that come from, and what does that mean, and what's the meaning of that in Arabic?
All right, so peace be upon everyone. Assalamu alaikum. That's what it means. Yeah, that's the saying. It means hi. Like here you say hello, it says hi. In Arabic we say salam alaikum mostly. It came from our faith, from our religion. Salam alaikum. Even I think in Hebrew they say something similar. They say shalom alaikum or something similar.
Shalom.
So yeah, kind of shalom. Yeah, shalom. So yeah, we say salam, which means peace. Salam alaikum, it means peace be upon you. Yeah.
So it's a greeting, and it's a
greeting,
hello, but it means peace be upon you. And
yes.
Tell us about your full name and then the meaning of of your name in Arabic, because that was also one of the other themes of within the other stories, and how that relates specifically to your name.
Yes, so also my name is, the full name is Abdul Rahman. If I say it in Arabic, it's kind of strong. We say Abdul Rahman. Since it's hard for people to pronounce it, I just tell them to say Abdul, or if they can do it, they can say Abdul Rahman. It means the servant of the most merciful. Also a religious name. Merciful, Rahman is like one of the names of God, Allah, that we worship. So yeah, most merciful, servant of the most merciful. That's what my name means, Abdul Rahman.
Okay, very
Yes.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just talk a little bit about geography and about where you're from, and then and obviously it's been in the news, with the very, very challenging earthquakes in that area. Just tell us where you're from, and then where it is. Give us a little background.
Yes, I'm from Aleppo, Syria. I was born there in 2001, I think, and then in 2012. The war started in there.
The Civil War.
The Civil War, yes. Yeah, it's basically a conflict between the regime and like the government and other militias and stuff. It's a conflict, basically. I don't take any side right now between them, because the only one who lost is the people, us. We're either refugees or immigrants, or a lot of people has been killed. And however, yeah, anyway. But yeah, I'm from Aleppo, Syria. Aleppo is an old city. I think it's been one of the oldest cities that is inhabited. I don't know about the exact date, but they say it's about like 10,000 years, I think.
So when the war broke out, you stayed for a little while, and then you moved to Lebanon at age 12, was it?
Yes, yeah. At age 12, the war started. It started in 2011 in the south of Syria, where Damascus is, just lower than Damascus. And then it started in 2011, and then it took almost a year until it reached Aleppo. That was in 2012. Yeah, the war started. It was hard. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in my story, but yes, we didn't know if we were going to wake up the next day or not. It was hard. It was difficult for us. Before migrating to Lebanon, we tried to migrate in different areas in Syria, close to my city, Aleppo. We went to like 2 areas for like 2 weeks, and then we went back to our home because same thing, those areas also got impacted with the war.
With violence.
Yeah, with the violence.
Fighting,
yeah. Then my parents, both of them, decided to leave Syria, and we migrated to Lebanon. We migrated to Lebanon in 2012. It was the end of 2012. I think it was October or November, something like this.
And so you were 12 years old, and I remember you describing to me that you were going to school in the afternoon, and then you were working and supporting your family in the morning. Right,
yeah. So in Syria, I studied until 6th grade. It was just normal school, going to school and then going back home. It didn't work at all in Syria. Only my dad used to work. Then we left to Lebanon. In Lebanon, it was hard because we had to start from scratch. I started working since I was, I think, 12 years old, because I had to help my family. As I mentioned, we started from nothing in there. Then the first year, there was no schools for Syrian. So I'm not sure if I mentioned, I didn't go into much details in the story, but yeah, the first year there was no schools for Syrians because there was a huge numbers
of refugees.
Huge numbers of refugees going to Lebanon. So I think there was like 2 million people. There's like at least 500,000 of kids in there that need school. And Lebanon is a small country, as you see. It's like really small compared to Syria. Yeah, the first year I started working. I worked as a delivery driver for like a convenience store and there. Then I started school after that year. The school, since I said there is no spaces for Syrians, they made another shift. It's in the afternoon. We go to school from 1:30, 2 o'clock until 6:30.
So they
After
added a second shift of
Yeah,
school
yeah.
for the Syrian refugees.
Yes, Lebanese people finish at 1:30, and then we go at 1:30 and start at 2, and then we finish at 6.
Wow.
Yeah, at night. Yeah. So yeah, I worked in the morning. I used to work from like 9, I think, or even 8. I had like different jobs at that time. One of them was at 6, I think. I used to go at 6, leave job at 1 o'clock, and then go to school, and then come back at 6.
Wow. And so you were there for a few years, and then you were selected for the lottery for the United Nations International Organization for Migration.
Yes,
correct?
so 4 years in Lebanon, just working and studying, and that's where I learned some English in Lebanon, because everything in Lebanon, like every subject in Lebanon is in English, like physics, chemistry, math, everything in English. That's where I learned the most English in Lebanon. Yeah, in 2016, the United Nations called my father and told him, would you like to travel? And my dad said yes. We didn't know where we're traveling because it's lottery basically. Almost 1 year from 2016 to the end of 2016 to like I think October, no, even December, I think. Just interviews, going to the what they call it, cultural something. They tell you how you should act when you go to a new country and stuff like this. And then they told us we're coming to the US. That was like almost 2-3 weeks before the departure date.
So you didn't know, and then 2 or 3 weeks before you found out where you were going, you had no idea before that.
We had no idea. Yeah, we're coming to the US because my uncle was in Lebanon, and they took him to Germany. That was in 2014. And not a lot of people coming to the US. Like most of the people that we hear, they're traveling, mostly going to Norway, Germany, what else? Sweden, Canada took some people. The US didn't took much people at that time. Like when we knew like that was a month before traveling, when we said we're going to the US, like to the friends and the people that we know, they didn't believe us. They said, "Oh, no one's traveled to the US," and yeah, it was good at that time. So we knew we're coming to the US, but not to Virginia.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Okay, and then so you were how old when you arrived?
What is it?
How old were you when you arrived in?
I was 16.
So you were still in high school.
Still in high school, yeah. I studied until 8th grade in Lebanon, and then came here, and I went only like for 3-4 months to a school, to ESL class, English second language class, and then school stopped because I think it was the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, we came to here in January 2017. That's when we came to the US. It took us about 2-3 months until we settled down. Then we went to a class for about 3 months, ESL class, and then I stopped school. I did homeschooling at that time. Yeah, even though I didn't learn that much English, but I went to homeschool. I did homeschool at home. It was online. Everything was online. Just taking, reading text and watching videos, and then taking quizzes online and exams. Yeah, so high school took me about 2 years. I finished in 2019. 2 years for the whole program of high school, because it's a study at your pace. So that was a good thing that existed. What else?
Yeah. So you finished high school and then you went to community college and now you're at
Yeah.
VCU.
Yeah, in 2020, I started community college. I was excited to start community college because I wanted to go to a class and stuff and like meet friends. Because the past 2 years were in
Homeschool.
homeschool, so yeah, everything was at home. I was working at the same time. I was working in a restaurant. Yeah, like all this time I've been working. But yeah, I was excited to start school in 2020. Yeah, the first 2 months, then we shifted home
Because of
because
the
COVID
pandemic.
came through. Yeah,
Oh my
the
goodness, that's
pandemic.
crazy.
Yeah,
And you came with you. It's your mother, your father, and then you. How many siblings do you have?
I have 4 siblings.
Four siblings.
Yeah,
You're the
all
oldest.
younger than me. Yeah, yeah, they're ranging from 19, 17, 15, and 8.
Wow.
And I'm
Okay.
20. I'm 21 right now. 22 actually.
Very good.
Yeah.
So how is it adjusting in terms of language for everyone and learning English?
The kids getting better. Of course, they went to schools. I think that's better. Going to school, I think, helps much more than studying at home. I found out this later. Yeah, they're good right now. My mom and dad also learning a bit by bit. I still help them with everything, translating with doctors and everything. Yeah, so I started college in 2020 at Reynolds Community College, also about 2 years, and then I just transferred to the VCU. My major is science. Hopefully, once I finish my bachelor, it's gonna take another 2 years. I'm thinking about going to dental school if everything goes out well, hopefully.
Good luck. Very good.
Thank you.
And so you've been here, so it's been how many years? And you said you just became a
U.S. citizen.
How'd that feel?
It feels good. Yeah, it's been 6 years since 2017. Now we're in 2023. Yeah, it's been 6 years. Feels different. I haven't tried my U.S. passport yet. I need to travel to try it. So, yeah, hopefully I'm gonna travel to Turkey one day, probably the next year.
Right? Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
And wait, one other just comment, and then we can open up for questions. We're in the middle of Ramadan, and
Yes.
what do you say during Ramadan?
You say Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Yeah, it means blessed Ramadan or happy Ramadan. Yeah, we fast in Ramadan. It's about 30 days. It follows the lunar year, so it depends on moon sighting. We fast for about 30 days, and we fast every day from, I would say, about 14-15 hours. Depends on if it was summer, winter, or the season.
Mm-hmm.
From sunrise to sunset. We don't drink, we don't eat at all, not even water. This question comes a lot. Not even water. What else?
So it's almost sundown.
Yeah, almost sundown. Yeah, so I'm gonna break my fast. We call it iftar in about an hour, I think, around 7:30. 7:35. Yeah, almost an hour, less than an hour.
Have something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of these 30 days, we have a holiday. We call it Eid. We celebrate the end of this month. We call it Eid al-Fitr. Yeah, it's like the holiday of breaking fast.
Okay.
Yes.
Breaking the fast.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Ben, do we have some time for some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few people here, and you should be able to unmute yourself. Just so you know, we are recording. So if you don't want your image up there, you can leave your camera off. Go ahead, Ellen.
How did you find the subjects that are part of this series?
Great question. So we were, it was quite organic. We, Alfonso, how would you describe it? I mean, there were a couple of people who were there were connectors within the immigrant community, and they knew a lot of the kind of different organizations in Richmond. So for example, there's an African immigrant organization, the Asian American Society of Central Virginia. I had a few suggestions. Alfonso at the time was working at the Sacred Heart Center, which is it's both a church and a center for immigrants in Richmond that supports recent immigrants with all kinds of different services, including classes.
But it's a great question, because I also I remember that at the beginning I think I woke up the next day from kind of like figuring everything out, and just started texting or emailing people that I knew with a very simple question about, do you know someone who speaks a different first language than English? And with that, people would suggest or propose or tell me to talk to someone else, and with that we would open up a conversation. But very quickly I talked with Carla Ramos, who's in the Office of Multicultural Affairs at that time, and she sent me she connected me to Joe, and at the same time Sistina Khan, who was the general secretary for the Asian American Society a while ago. I contacted with her, and she immediately connected me with a lot of people that could be interested in a project like this. And at the beginning, I was a little bit scared, because I felt that people were not going to see the invitation, or we were not going to have enough people to have a meaningful project. But at the same time, I remember at some point we had to let people know that we had enough participants, and we had to stop doing interviews and stuff like that.
Question. The picture in the middle that's up on the screen is a Vietnamese speaker, but I can't read the name.
To La Femme.
To La Femme?
Yeah, her name's on the lower left. THU, two, and then La Femme. She left Vietnam during the what we call it the Vietnam War, what over there they call the American War.
Right.
And she studied French, and when she arrived in the US, she settled and raised her son, and and had a family, and then taught French for many years. I think it was in Henrico School District.
Henrico, yeah.
Yeah, Henrico School District, and was
I was going to ask about Alfonso, the way you've drawn is that a teacher finger?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's a very good question, and it gives me a little moment to talk about how these portraits were made with references to pictures that each participant would send me. And that was very challenging for me at some point, because I'm used to working with portraits in a more personal way. I would meet people and I would have a conversation with each person, and then take a picture and sometimes even sketch a quick portrait of them as we're talking. And with all of those elements, I would just go, come to the studio and then make the portrait there. But here it was I would just have the picture, one or two pictures that they sent me, and then what Joe would tell me, what Joe could give good gossip to me from their interview, for me to know a little bit more about what to do with that. Because each portrait, maybe you don't feel it that much as a viewer, but for me, it's there's little gestures, there's little things that I emphasize on or not, that come from the person's personality, that comes from the person's like story. So sometimes they seem a little bit happier, sometimes they seem a little bit like quieter maybe, and sometimes they seem a little bit more teachery, like her. And she's a teacher. She's like 100% teacher all the time.
She is, and she's really an advocate for learning languages, which just fit into the theme of language diversity. To her right is Yanis, who's a professor at VCU in the economics department. So he's also a teacher. And then to the left, Sarah, who's originally from Thailand, who adopted a new first name in English, when she became a US citizen. Anyway, so those are really neat stories. While if there's any, please ask any more questions, but while jump in, but if our book is available at the Richmond Public Library, and we hope and you can check it out at the Richmond Public Library. It's also available at the Asian American Society of Central Virginia's website. And it's in 2 bookstores. One is at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture, and then the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. So it's not on Amazon, but it's a locally published book, to highlight the voices, the people, the diversity, the languages of Richmond, Virginia, and the rich tapestry of the city. So, and alternatively, feel free to download a chapter of the book on my website, which has the introduction. Ben, thank you for this opportunity. It's great to be here and highlight Richmond's voices through Richmond Public Library.
Yeah, thank you, all 3 of you, for coming and for sharing. You have some nice comments in the chat, which I hope you will scroll through. And yeah, we're really proud to have a book like this in our collection. And Richmond Public Library, I mean, we do art, we do books, we do the written word, but we also are about connecting people to each other. Whether that's a new arrival to Richmond with another human being who's willing to help them get where they need to go or do what they need to do, or whether that's with the other people you meet at the library. So thank you all, and I will share this recording with you, and you can use it however you wish.
Excellent. Well,
thank you.
Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity.
Shalom.
I hope I did good.
Shalom. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye all.